Good morning, my dear students. Today is Wednesday, 25th of March, 2020. Grade 12 Advanced Literature Revision. Objectives. Today we are going to discuss some questions related to Chapter 1 and 2. Now, as you see, course book page 113. Look at the photos on the page and discuss the questions, giving reasons for your answers where possible. What can you see here? What do you think the story might be about? Where do you think the story is set? And when do you think the story is set? Now, the first question, what do you think the story might be about? Try to think. The photo shows a boy who is poorly dressed, young and alone. There are busy streets and pictures of dormitories and industry. Perhaps he has to live in these conditions and work. Question number 2. Where do you think the story is set? Looks like a busy town or city. When do you think the story is set? The photos are black and white. The clothing the people and the boy are wearing is not modern. So it's probably at least 100 years old. Okay. The first chapter in the story, Oliver Twist, is called The Workhouse. Do you know what a workhouse is or was? As we know before, the workhouse is the place for poor people, where places that poor people went to live and work when they needed help with clothing, food, or shelter. Question number 4. Oliver Twist was written in 1837, 3 years after the Poor Law Amendment. Read the extracts from the beginning of the novel and answer the questions. Provide evidence where possible. Number 1, where is the action taking place? Number 2, who is Oliver Twist? Number 3, overall, do you believe the tone is positive or negative? Number 4, do you believe Oliver Twist is going to have an easy or difficult or sad or happy life based on this introduction? Number 5, what do you think might be the author's view of workhouse? Try to think, please. Question number 1, where is the action taking place? As we know, the action is taking place in a workhouse. Number 2, who is Oliver Twist? Oliver Twist is the boy who is born in the workhouse and an orphan. Number 3, overall, do you believe the tone is positive or negative? Overall, the tone is negative. Large, cold workhouse. Line 1, extract 1, a world of sorrow and trouble. Oliver struggled to breathe. Let me see the child and die. He was alone in the world. All these sentences demonstrate that Oliver will lead a miserable life. Number 4, do you believe Oliver Twist is going to have an easy or difficult or sad or happy? As we know from the introduction, it would seem that Oliver is going to have a sad and difficult life. Number 5, what do you think might be the author's view of the workhouse? Due to the overall negative tone, it would seem doesn't have a positive view of workhouse. Now, let's go to course book page 115 and 116. How old was Oliver when he is moved from the orphanage? to the workhouse, if you remember. Question number 2. What do you think Oliver's life would be like in a workhouse? Number 3. Do you think the conditions of a workhouse would give a child a good life? Let's see the answers, please. Number 1. How old is Oliver? How old is Oliver when he is moved from the orphanage to the workhouse? He was 9 years old. Number 2. What do you think Oliver's life would be like in a workhouse? From what we know, we could assume that life would be hard and lonely. He would be away from any kind of family or care. Question number 3. Do you think the conditions of workhouse would give a child a good life? Of course, no. These conditions don't seem good, especially if we imagine what the life of a 9-year-old is now and compare it to these conditions. Read the description of the orphanage from chapter 1, line 17. It's okay. Let's read. Try to read. Number 1. Who is Mrs. Main? Does she seem like a good woman? Why or why not? Question number 2. Do you think the orphanage would be a good home for a child? Why or why not? Try to read. Take your time. Mrs. Main was a very unkind woman, as I told you before in the introduction of the characters of the novel, who didn't care about the orphans, was filthy. It means very dirty and dangerous, and many of the children died from cold, lack of food, or neglect. Let's answer question number 1. Who is Mrs. Mann? Mrs. Mann is the orphanage owner. She doesn't seem like a good woman. She is described as very unkind. We can say she is a greedy woman. Number 2, do you think the orphanage would be a good home for a child? Sure, no. Doesn't seem a good place for a child. It's okay. The conditions are described further in the following lines. Filthy and dangerous. The children there are hungry. Question number 3. How did Oliver feel when he left the orphanage? Look at the chapter and underline. Oliver is upset at leaving the orphanage and feels lonely. Why? Because he will miss his friends. It's okay. As you see, the only home he had ever known, and he was leaving the only people and friends he had ever met in his life so far. Question number 4. Later in the chapter, Oliver is living in the workhouse. It's okay. Read the passage from line 35. This is the passage. From your book. Try to read. We don't want to waste your time. Try to read it in your book. Which choice best summarizes the passage? A character who is barely surviving under difficult living conditions asks for relief and is punished for it. As we remember, the biggest problem for Oliver Twist when he asked for more food. Question number 2, in lines 38 and 39, it states that Oliver and his companions were very hungry, as usual, but they never asked for a second bowl of gruel. Why do you think this is? They are afraid to ask for a second bowl. In line 46, faint most nearly means weak, because they are talking about his body. It's okay. Now, question number 4. Which choice best describes the master, Mr. Bumble, and the workhouse board reaction? As I told you before, many times they were excessively shocked and surprised and made an unjust decision. Why? Because Oliver asked for more food. In the last paragraph of the passage, the author includes the description of Oliver's confinement, the walls, his small hands, and his tears, to emphasize the cold and the harsh treatment of a character. Thank you for your listening. Goodbye.